Howdy, hi, and hello everyone. Welcome back to Noah's Nest. If you don't know what Noah's Nest is, first of all, hi, I'm Noah. I'll be your host. And in this short series show, side piece, I go over a couple different things. I either talk about a topic that I think that is interesting, funny, informational, that can encompass all forms of media that involve fantasy, or I talk about TTRPGs that I have finally read and decide to review or interview, I don't know, whatever you suggest. And in this one, I've done a bit of research. I don't know why that sounded like that. I've done a bit of research. I've gone on Reddit. I asked some questions for what are some of the worst house rules that you've played. I know there is one that had 44 different house rules, and I'm not going to cover that. Many people have already covered that. And, you know, I don't need to beat a dead horse while it is already dead. So, every GM has had a player. The one that proudly announces that they've got a few house rules that kind of makes things a bit more realistic, more fun, more serious. And everyone at the table can either sigh or be like, okay, yeah, sure. Because that sentence usually means for the next few hours, it's going to turn into a slog. So I'm going to go over a couple today. First one, well, before I start, I'll talk about why do bad house rules even exist. Most of the time, these house rules start off with good intentions. Game masters want to make things more fair, balanced, or even more immersive. Players want to fix perceived flaws in the system, but TTRPGs are ecosystems. Pull one thread and the whole thing could really unravel. For example, a GM thinks resting is too easy. So they make a short rest take 8 hours long, while a long rest takes 3 days. Now the party's out of spells, the pacing grinds to a halt, and everyone spends 3 sessions foraging for berries instead of fighting goblins. Bad house rules happen when someone makes quote-unquote realism for quote-unquote fun. The same thing happens when someone confuses quote-unquote difficulty with challenge. A good challenge engages the players. A bad one just punishes them for existing. So, let's talk about the first and most infamous offender. Critical fumble punishment rules. You know the one. When a player rolls a natural 1, not only you miss, but you might hit yourself, you might stab a friend, you might drop your weapon, and cry about it for 2 turns. This is a RPG classic, and it is terrible. Why? Because it punishes material. Oh my gosh. Why does this happen? Because it punishes martial characters. Spellcasters might only roll once per turn, while fighters and monks, they're rolling 4 or 5 attacks a round, meaning they're statistically guaranteed to humiliate themselves at least once a combat. And let's be real, it's funny maybe once, but when your fighter disarms themselves for the 7th time in the session, it stops being comedy and it starts being almost psychological warfare. This rule shows up across multiple systems. D&D, Pathfinder, Warhammer, Those Dark Places, Call of Cthulhu, anywhere dice determines your fate. And it almost ruins the tone of the game. If you're running a serious campaign, you don't want the paladin impaling your own foot mid-boss fight. If you want comedy, sure, make fumbles part of the tone. But if your goal is a drama or tension, lol, I hit myself, is as effective as a cream pie at a fucking funeral. Now, next is a realism trap. Now, realism in tabletop can be great in moderation, but some groups go overboard. Here are some infamous quote-unquote realism house rules that can ruin the pacing faster than a dragon ruins a tavern. 1. Tracking every ounce of food or water. 2. Forcing players to calculate bathroom breaks. 3. Encumbrance based on actual backpack volume. 4. Penalties for sleeping in armor. And 5. Disadvantage for fighting in the rain. In theory, this makes the game... this makes the game feel grounded. In practice, you spend 30 minutes debating on how many gallons of soup the wizard can actually carry. You debate on, well, I didn't sleep in armor, but my armored pants are still on. Does that count? House rules work better when the players want that style. But forcing it on everyone makes your campaign feel like a survival spreadsheet. And in a one-shot, this is instant momentum killer. Players want to do things, not perform advanced logistics for fictional inventory. If you ever had a GM pause the story because they need to calculate the humidity modifier, you've experienced the realism trap. Another awful house rule tends to be because I said so restrictions. These are when GMs ban things not for story reasons, but for control reasons. 1. No elves in my world, no magic in the setting, no ranged weapons because they're boring. Only can be a specific race. There's no such thing as these items, no such thing as these subclasses. Now, if those bans serve to the story or theme, cool. But when it's just to flex authority or quote-unquote balance things, it kills player creativity. You're not protecting the game. You're limiting its potential. And the worst offenders, those that sound creative but aren't. Like, everyone has to play human so it's more realistic. Congratulations, you turned fantasy into a tax meeting. In one-shots, this ruins the excitement for trying new characters. In long campaigns, it just becomes slow and suffocating. Let your players be weird. If your players want to be a cyborg bard in Call of Cthulhu crossover, let them fail gloriously. Don't ban it because it's not canon. Next one is the overcomplicated spiral. Now, some GMs can't help themselves. These seem to have a simple mechanic and think, you know what? What this needs 4 more steps. And this is how you'll kind of get the disaster. First, rolling initiative requires 3 separate checks. Why? Next, you must confirm critical hits and critical fails. That'll never fucking happen. Hit points now have individual limb tracking. I don't want to be playing green hell this whole entire fucking time. And 4, every weapon has its own maintenance schedule. Like, I know certain TTRPGs have some of these overcomplicated rules, but they find ways to make it interesting. They find ways to make it legitimate. Like the weapon maintenance. That's en route to the TTRPG, where 1 or 2 hits, it might be broken. But based in that system and world, fixing these things and being part of an animal world makes more sense. Yes, that's a real thing people have done in all of these things. The problem here is pacing. Overly complicated rules slow down play, break immersion, and turn every action into a slog. It doesn't make the game deeper. It just makes it overly exhausting. And if you're running a one-shot, that's just game over. Nothing kills a good story faster than needing to calibrate to figure out if you're reloading your crossbow correctly. Streamlined games like Fate, Blades in the Dark, or Kids on Bikes proves that narrative focus often leads to richer, faster, and more emotional play. Overcomplication can just make the table groan every time someone rolls. Next one is a bit more controversial. The rule of cool. It's amazing until it isn't. This house rule basically says if it's awesome, it succeeds. Which, it's great until you realize it completely destroys tension if applied inconsistently. If one player gets to succeed for just being cool, and another one fails following the system, resentment builds fast. If it's fun in one-shots or cinematic moments, but if every single rule becomes a sure, you win because that's cool, the dice might not exist anymore. The key is moderation. The rule of cool should enhance the story, not replace it. Otherwise, it becomes the rule of whatever the GM thinks is fun. And the last one that I'll talk about might be the most destructive one. It's my table, my rules. Yes, I get it. The GM runs the world. The GM is doing the whole story making. But when that phrase becomes a shield to ignore feedback, break fairness, or shut down discussions, it's no longer a rule. It's a fucking tyrant. Every TTRPG is a collaborative game. The table should agree on experience together. A GM who uses my table, my rules to justify punishing players, changing mechanics mid-session, or nerfing characters out of spite isn't creating a story. They're running a dictatorship. This attitude kills campaigns, completely ruins friendships, and ensures your next session will have a lot of more scheduling conflicts. So, what can make a good house rule? It's simple. It enhances fun, not frustration. It fits your goals playstyle. It's consistent and transparent, and it's all agreed on by everyone. House rules should exist to fix friction, not to show off authority. If your player groans every time a house rule comes up, that's your cue to just let it die out. Whether you're running a sprawling campaign or a one-night chaos-fueled adventure, remember, these are meant to serve the story, not the other way around. And thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Noah's Nest. If you like this and want to hear more, check out everything we've done in the past, from one-shots other Noah's Nest, tavern talks, and even some fantasy interviews. We have social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X/Twitter, I don't know anymore. All at Creatures and Cantrips or Creature Cantrip. We don't bite. I don't bite. If you want to send us a message or a comment, send it. We're not going to hurt. We're not going to bite. We're not going to throw you in a well and just let you die down there. Like, share, comment, rate us 5 stars. Everything really helps us, gets us out there so more of you makes this family grow. Thank you all for listening once again. Last thing I'll say, see you, love you, miss you. Goodbye, guys.